Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is a podcast that strives to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
Alissa, you know when you're planning for a hot date and nothing's coming to mind where to go, and so you're racking your brain, and all of a sudden a brilliant idea comes into your mind, almost as if someone, I don't know, maybe grandma put it there. And that's when you know the most perfect spot for your smoking hot date. The cemetery.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. I have. You're saying that because I have been on a date at a cemetery before, right?
That's right, you have.
Okay.
Smoking hot.
Grandma's not the best with ideas for dates, I got to tell you. If you really want those to last, maybe don't listen to Grandma on that one. She's like, come visit me.
It was a very short-lived romance, that one.
I should clarify. We didn't go visit my dead grandmother's grave for my date. That would be a little weird.
Other people's dead grandmothers.
I wasn't even there for the dead people. You know, I don't go for the dead people. I go for the views. That's is that like the strip joint? I go for the dancing or the music.
This is why we have a podcast called SkeleTales. I love it so much.
Mount Auburn Cemetery, I think is the name of it. Oh my God, I've been thinking about that for years. Mount Auburn Cemetery in Boston is the one where I went on a date. And it's one of the oldest, most beautiful cemeteries in the country.
That sounds magical.
He had zero appreciation for the landscape.
I've been zero appreciation for the landscape. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's all distracted by the graves and tombstone. He couldn't see the forest through the trees.
Him.
He couldn't see the landscape through the bodies and tombstones.
I mean, loser. Mike and I visited London one time. Oh no, that's not totally true. We visited London one time and it was Christmas Day. In the UK, literally everything shuts down on Christmas Day. You cannot ride the subway or the tube. You cannot get a taxi. Every restaurant, every pub, everything is closed. Except for the cemetery. So on Christmas Day in London, we went to this super incredible cemetery and it was beautiful. I'm all about the cemetery.
I think you've told that story on the podcast before is what I'm thinking. And I can't think of words because I think you've already said this on the podcast.
I did?
I think you did. I think you told us about how you went on a date to a cemetery in London
I didn't go
Christmas.
On a date. It was no, but I did find a penny there and I took it and I took it home.
What? Okay.
And I don't know if that, I don't know why people put pennies on graves, but I took it home.
Why did
I
you
didn't tell that on the podcast?
You didn't tell its penny stealing part.
Money.
You told us about going to the graveyard on Christmas.
And I'm an American, so I was like, ooh, foreign money. This is special.
Well, wait, was it a penny then, or was it like a fucking shilling?
Pence. It was a pence. It was
a
pence, I think is what they call it. Pence.
Look at all these free pence around. People just laying them around. That's not a date. Right? That's grave robbing. Let me clarify.
You're the one going on the hot dates and cemeteries.
You just said, and that inspired your own story, recollection of your date you went on at a cemetery on Christmas Day.
Oh, no. You talking about beautiful cemeteries reminded me of the one I went to. Not the date.
I mean, it kind of sounds like a date to me. Also like grave robbing.
Mark and Grant were there.
Pick one.
So not so sex.
It was Mark and Grant.
And Mike.
It was a triple date. Damn. Okay, no, that doesn't sound like a date.
I had it really going on. 3 dudes in the cemetery.
Stealing penny. It came
walking
home
around
with
on
pockets full of shillings. Locked out there.
It's so cursed. So cursed. Wow. Alissa, do we only talk about haunted cemeteries and hot dates and haunted cemeteries?
No, Britt, we tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal. But tonight we are going to talk about haunted cemeteries.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why.
Why? Please.
Because there is a cemetery near me called the Black Diamond Cemetery. And I've heard of it many times. When I ask people in the area, hey, what's a haunted destination, a haunted place? Everyone says the Black Diamond Cemetery down in Black Diamond, Washington, which is not far from us. It's like 20 minutes. Although I went a very roundabout way to get there. We were coming back from Mount St. Helens last weekend. We went down to Mount St. Helens, stared at the blown up volcano, camped the night, drove back around. We're coming through Black Diamond. And I was like, Mitch, we need to go check out this cemetery. We're right here. It's like, it was like 3 minutes from where we were. I'm like, we have to go. And cause I've heard so much about this. I don't even know if I knew what it was haunted with. I just knew it was one of the most haunted cemeteries. And when we pulled up, I literally like got freaked out. I was like, I gasped because I was like, oh, this cemetery is really haunted. But honestly, okay, and don't hate on me if people love this cemetery. It was a little underwhelming, in my opinion, from once the initial shock, because you kind of go up over a hill.
Ashbury one to
it ain't no Mount Auburn.
Ashland? What?
Yeah.
Mount Auburn. Wow, I was way off. Okay.
It ain't no Mount Auburn cemetery. It ain't no England winter cemetery.
Right.
Not a single penny to steal. None.
Lame.
I know. But it's just a cemetery. I thought it was going to be like real old and like ornate and decrepit looking, I guess.
Yeah, like iron fences that are kind of rusted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because I think I grew up on the East Coast, like there's some old ass cemeteries. Also, I was in Salem a few years ago, and those cemeteries, like that cemetery is old and cool and crumbling and just like real cool as shit. So this was just like a wrought iron, not even a wrought iron fence. Sorry. It was a chain link fence, not even close to the same thing.
Oh.
Had a chain link fence around it. The sign was just like almost like just a park sign, like two wooden boards, horizontal, Black Diamond Cemetery. I took a bunch of videos, so I do have some video footage.
Did you look at all the orbs, Alissa? The orbs in your video?
Nary an orb.
Oh, damn it.
But I also didn't realize like it's still in use. In my brain, everyone in this cemetery was born in like the 1800s. But no, there's like very recent plots, like 2020, like people have just been born in there. So I didn't even know that about it. I didn't know it was an active cemetery. It's just a cemetery. I thought it was going to look more haunted than it is. Okay. This is part of my issue.
Okay.
There are some graves dating back to the 1800s. It is a historic landmark within Washington state. It has a group of miners who died in some tragic mining accident because Black Diamond is coal, big coal area around here, coal mining.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just like walking around and taking video and stuff. At one point I said, is anybody here? Nothing. I even re-listened to the video. Nothing. But at one point I was walking down and taking video, and I literally thought I heard footsteps behind me. Like I thought there was another set of footsteps behind me. It was very weird. I listened back and you can't really hear, but in the moment I did feel that was probably the only freaky thing that happened, that like I felt like there were footsteps right behind me and right walking with me, like an extra set of crunching in the gravel. Not an extra. I don't know how to describe it. Because like you would hear an extra set if you're listening to the video, just like
almost as if somebody is stepping just a step behind you though.
Yes.
So it's like you hear yours and you almost hear like they're timing their steps to be with your steps.
Yeah. Like my own steps were like too long or something. Like there was someone, oh, okay. So that happened. But, I thought, hey, this would be a fun thing to do an episode on. So I'm going to tell you about the Black Diamond Cemetery more than I have already told you.
Fantastic. Will you post some photos too so we can see
I will.
Underwhelming it is?
It's kind of underwhelming. Like there's just houses next to it. It's like,
Oh my God.
it's just a fucking cemetery. I don't know. But I didn't go in the middle of the night. What? Why are you
I have to I don't want to take the spotlight off of Black Diamond,
No,
but
please.
I do.
Do it.
Quick little, while you're pulling your story up, we went to visit Mike's brother in Denver, and they lived directly across the street from a cemetery. Did I tell you this story yet?
I don't know.
Oh my God. So we're only there for a day or two, and we decide to take a walk in the neighborhood. So we cross the street. We're walking past the cemetery. I'm with my boys and my sister-in-law. And I say, okay, boys, keep your eyes peeled. Oh, first of all, they're trying to run out in the road and hit each other with sticks. So I'm like, okay, boys, what I need you to do is focus hard on the cemetery and tell me if you see any like women with billowy white dresses. And and they're like, okay, if we see one, does that mean that that Uncle and Aunt's house are I'm not going to say their names, is haunted? And my sister-in-law, dead face straight, says, our house isn't haunted. It's covered in the blood of Christ. And my little boy's eyes got so big. And that was the most horrific ghost story that they could have heard in their whole life. I visualized in their heads that they saw her splashing blood on her walls. All over her house.
She said that.
My house is covered in Christ's blood. Like, you can't say that shit to little children.
That doesn't make a child feel better. Like, would you pick one?
Can I choose the ghost instead of the bloody walls, please?
Did you ever hold your breath driving by a cemetery? Because the spirit would fly into your lungs, I guess. I don't know. It possessed you. Was that a thing you guys did?
No, but I love that idea.
Yeah.
No, we do in tunnels.
Oh, we scream in tunnels. Hold our breath in cemeteries.
Oh, scream.
Maybe we should hold our breath in tunnels and scream by cemeteries.
In cemeteries.
That's what we should do. But I always wonder if people who lived like right across the street from a cemetery just had to hold their breath the whole time.
And then they die and go live in the cemetery.
That's how the cemetery stayed in business. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about this. Getting back
Black
on
Diamond
track.
Cemetery. I love it. I'm into it.
Cemetery. Okay, so I'm going to read you an article from Seattle Terrors, and I think they might do ghost tours. We might have to.
Ooh.
I'm not sure. It says call them. I'm not going to right now. Yeah. So, the Black Diamond Cemetery is just a short drive away from Seattle, located in the mining town of Black Diamond. The graveyard is known for some spooky haunts, with locals claiming that the ghosts of the miners buried there long ago still haunt the cemetery. There have been several claims of ghostly apparitions swinging their lanterns around, strange voices and whistling, and even a phantom horse weaving in and out of the tombstones. Some claim to have rational explanations for the haunts, while others are convinced that it's ghosts. Paranormal investigators have surveyed the graveyard and have produced mixed results, adding to the mystery. The Black Diamond Cemetery is notable for its history, being home to miners of diverse backgrounds from countries like Italy, Russia, and Australia. The cemetery features the grave of several miners who died in an explosion and the victims of the influenza and smallpox epidemics of the early 20th century. The Black Diamond Cemetery was established in 1884 as a graveyard for the coal miners and their families. It served as both a company and community cemetery, meaning it was also open to the ordinary residents of the area. The cemetery covers 3.5 acres and contains about 1,200 graves. And man, they keep going on about the diversity and then keep just naming Germany, Russia.
The most whitest.
Yeah, and Australia. But I guess it was immigrants is what they're trying to say. There were a lot of immigrants. Okay. One grave contains the remains of 8 miners who were killed in the Lawson mine explosion in 1910. This cemetery was maintained by a graveyard fee, quote unquote, deducted from the miners' paychecks. At least one Civil War veteran is buried at the cemetery, as well as several children who died of the influenza and smallpox epidemics of the early 1900s. The Black Diamond Cemetery is known for strange and spooky happenings. The cemetery naturally has a haunted aura, which when I saw it, I gasped. I did gasp. It surprised me. Immediately followed by underwhelm, but being strangely hidden from the public view by a rows of trees and thick vegetation. The only mark of its existence to a passerby is a wooden sign placed by the local Cub Scouts. Oh, I had to shit on a Cub Scout sign. I didn't know that.
Oh,
but that sounds about right. It's not. It's
not even a Boy Scout or a full-blown Scout.
No, it's just not like a really ornate. It's very like looks like it would be at a campsite, something like that. But I also don't feel like it's hidden by a bunch of trees or nothing. It's like very much a wrought iron fence, or not a wrought iron, a chain link fence, and then there's like a big concrete building that I think. I think
mausoleum.
Maybe it's outside of the walls of the cemetery, so it might be like a lawnmower
tool shed.
Yeah, it's a tool shed. I don't agree with that assessment of it being tucked away. It's just like up a hill, so you don't kind of see it right away. The Black Diamond Cemetery is said to be home of the ghosts of the many miners who perished. On foggy nights, many have witnessed strange lights floating over the graveyard. They resemble lanterns, and many say that those are the spirits of the miners still searching for coal in the afterlife. Wait, I mentioned this in last episode. I must have.
About miners?
About people looking for coal in the afterlife, and imagine that's your afterlife, like a bad nightmare about like your work, like you're a fucking checkout person for eternity.
We had a whole thing about it.
Okay, so this, I guess I didn't realize, maybe I guess, not psychic.
It's a thing.
It must have been why it was on my mind. I must have looked it up before. Okay, so that's the deal, that they're looking for coal in the afterlife. Maybe. Although some attribute the floating lights to natural gas, a phenomenon called will-o'-the-wisp. This is when swamp gas combusts and produces a cool blue flame. There are several documented cases in wetlands all over the world, such as the Saratoga ghost lights in Texas. Fairies, ghosts, and floating orbs seen in swampy areas are all attributed to will-o'-wisp. This was not swampy, I will tell you that. It was like dry as a bone.
I was about to ask, typically on hills are not typically
upon a hill.
Areas.
Yeah, it was not a lowland swamp by any means. According to locals, the ghost of a white horse has been seen in the confines of the graveyard. It usually appears at night and has a glowing white aura. Black Diamond is a rural area, so horses aren't uncommon, but the cemetery is surrounded by a chain link fence. Historically, the graveyard was surrounded by a stile, which allowed humans to cross, but not animals. A horse finding its way into the cemetery is highly unlikely. But perhaps the horse belonged to someone laid to rest in the graveyard and has remained by his owner's side in the afterlife. Other unusual occurrences include disembodied voices and whistling coming from certain graves. Many say that it's the ghost of the miners who like to spook some of the visitors to the Black Diamond Cemetery. Okay, so someone did go out there and they used like a spirit box and they picked up a few words. I can't remember what they were. It was something like murder, riverside, or something like that. But
what did you just say? Diversified?
Diversity.
We just covered that it's not diverse in the slightest.
Okay, so that's what people supposedly see there. So this is the most haunted cemetery that everyone talks about. I don't know. I didn't go at night because I'm a wuss and didn't want to. That
I'm not
seems
going
scary.
at night. No.
The paranormal investigators that went, they did go. They said they saw some sort of apparition, heard a little bit of chatter on the box. One girl showed up and then they got a lot more activity on their chatterbox, spirit box. I forget the names of these things.
Chatterbox! That's pretty good.
And then that one was like riverbank body. And it was like a case she had just worked on. And she thought maybe that they'd followed her there or something like that. So that is the Black Diamond Cemetery. I don't know.
Well done, Alissa. Feet on the ground.
I tried.
Researching some haunted places. I love it. I love it a lot.
I will post a video. You will be underwhelmed.
I am looking forward to it.
Okay. Tell us a good story now.
Okay. I got a little story about a woman named Marjorie McCall. Have you heard of her?
Mm-mm.
Wouldn't be surprised. It was back in 1705.
Oh. Oh, no.
Huh?
Marjorie? No.
Marjorie. I was trying to come up with something good. After succumbing to a fever of some sort in 1705, Irish woman Marjorie McCall was hastily buried to prevent the spread of whatever had done her in. Marjorie was buried with a valuable ring, which her husband had been unable to remove due to the swelling of her body. This made her an even better target for body snatchers who could cash in on the corpse and the ring. The evening after Marjorie was buried, before the soil had even settled, the grave robbers showed up and started digging. Unable to pry the ring off the swollen finger, they decided to cut the finger off. As soon as blood was drawn, Marjorie awoke from her coma. She sat straight up and screamed, as one would if their finger were chopped off. The fate of the grave robbers remains unknown. One story says that the men dropped dead on the spot, while another claims they fled and never returned to the chosen profession. Marjorie climbed out of the hole and made her way back home. Her husband, John, a doctor, was at home with the children when he heard a knock at the door. Sorry. Damn it. I lost my place from knocking, and then I made the dog bark. I don't know if you can hear that.
I did hear the dog bark.
Well, Marjorie had a dog. That's her dog barking.
Oh, okay.
He told the children, "If your mother were alive, I swear that was her knock." When he opened the door to find his wife standing there, dressed in her burial clothes, blood dripping from her finger, but very much alive, he dropped dead on the floor. He was buried in the plot that Marjorie had vacated. Marjorie went on to remarry and have several children. When she did finally die, she was returned to Shank Hill Cemetery in Lurgan, Ireland, where her gravestone still stands, and it bears the inscription, "Lived once, buried twice."
Plot twist. I definitely did not see him dropping dead. Oh my.
You didn't mean to do that, did you?
I did not mean to do it. It was just a natural talent. It really was a plot twist. Okay. I thought I'd heard this like as you were telling me this, but in my version or whatever, I thought I heard she died again for real this time at the door. So I don't know if there's a couple different stories. It sounds like people got buried alive.
I mean, it could be, yeah. But little game of telephone, I'm sure.
I thought that because grave robbers were such a problem back in that day, right? I almost think that like the husband should have chopped her finger off and taken the ring to prevent her from getting dug up. And at that point, she would have woken up, and then they could have lived happily ever after.
I mean,
Choppy chop chop.
I have not lost a spouse, but it would be, I would not want to cut their finger off.
I wouldn't want to cut their finger off, but I
ring's
might
not
have
worth
someone
it.
else. No, but you know that the grave robbers would be treasuring that ring, and she would not sleep. She would not be able to rest because she had this ring that couldn't get removed, and everybody in the little town knew. Also, did you ask me if I knew Marjorie because I'm Irish? Like, what the hell? We don't all know each other,
And also
Britt.
from 1700s.
God. Yeah, exactly. My class. That is a wild story. That is terrifying.
I thought it was
Poor
pretty.
hubby. Poor hubby
awesome.
just dropped dead. That's
I
so
know.
sad.
I know. Like she's covered in blood.
But those little kids got their mom back. That's nice. Did they have
her
mom? I imagine
she,
they're Irish. They had kids. Definitely.
Oh, like 12 of them at least. For sure.
Do you want to be buried in all your jewelry? I think about this sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with it?
Don't give a shit. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't care about it. I'm a organ donor, so I'm like, take my skin, take my guts, like I don't care about any of it. It's flesh.
The only part of me, like 300, no, more than that, thousands of years from now, some part of me wants to kind of be a mummy body that if future people dig up and are like, oh, look at the, like maybe if you guys could dress me like some sort of warrior princess so they could think that I was like a warrior of some sort, like maybe some
like the one with the like gold eye or glass eye or whatever.
Yeah. Like make me look super badass to future generations.
I'm into that.
Please.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That's my,
okay.
I actually played tennis tonight and I think my nickname might be Alissa the Violent. That's apparently the reputation I have in the tennis community, or at least someone joked about it.
So
and
much.
I said, I am not upset about that. That's exactly the reputation I want. I can have a nasty overhead, and that's why.
For the most like docile sport. Okay, I know it's not that docile, but like, yeah.
Oh man, you can hurt people. Like there's some you can get hit. A tennis ball can do some damage.
By it.
So yes, like okay, my appetite. Alissa the Violent. Like let's like slide that somewhere in there, like a little badge. Maybe brand me, etch it into my bones somewhere, like so people can read that. That's my
okay. Etch it into a bone.
Burial dreams. They'll be like, shit, this person was badass. But my actual like wedding ring and stuff my kids can have. Just like make me something ornate just for death, please. Okay. Last wishes. That's it.
Yeah, they're like, look at this. I mean, it's all aluminum foil, which is really weird, but she has to have been some kind of amazing Viking warrior princess.
Like an aluminum foil wreath and like just a ball of aluminum foil in my eye socket. You guys just like, we don't have gold, but we do have aluminum foil. We can ball up, pop in there.
I mean, it's so easy to mold it to whatever. This like armor.
I like this freaking aluminum foil grill across my teeth too. You guys just get real carried away. Okay.
We'll do it.
Okay, but that reminded me, your little story reminded me of a tiny little message from Kim that says, I once had a bracelet that I had put in the coffin of my great-grandmother. Later, I was upset because I wanted to have that bracelet back, which was impossible, of course. But later that same day, I was going to bed and the bracelet was sitting on my pillow. I had no idea how it got there. I was positive I put it in the coffin. I know I put it in the coffin with my grandmother and it got closed. Even my mom, who is a non-believer of anything, was super freaked out and confused. It was only us living there and we still have no idea how that bracelet got back to us.
Okay, I love that. I love it. I mean, you have to like be buried in that bracelet, the haunted bracelet of your dead grandmother. Yes.
Maybe that's it. She's like,
yes.
No. This is for you to wear when you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep. Not
until then, though.
Speaking of dead bodies buried in a ground, this story comes from Jerry. Jerry is a police officer in a smallish town in South Dakota, and he says, when you work the night shift, part of the duty is to patrol through the graveyard to help reduce damage to headstones and other property in the area. This particular night was about 3 weeks following a murder that had taken place about 20 yards from the entrance to the graveyard. The murder was still believed to be an accident, since our alcoholic sheriff investigated it late at night, and he was always intoxicated by 7 p.m. The murder was that of a wonderful lady, Kathy, who worked the night shift at the liquor store in town, and we all knew her well as she kept a pot of coffee on for us cops. So we would stop by for a cup on our patrol, and she just felt better when one of us was there in the store. She was found dead in her car at a railroad crossing. The car had been set on fire and her body was burned beyond recognition on the tracks near the entrance to the cemetery. This particular night that he's patrolling was around 2:15, and I was on the back side of the graveyard. I had my window open. It was a hot, sweltering night. The moon was as full as I've ever seen it, and the night insects were making a real song of it. Oh, I like that. As I turned and shined the patrol spotlight around the headstones, I heard a loud female voice scream, "No! Help! Murder!" Man, I like to jump out of my skin at that. I shined the spotlight back and forth, seeking the source of that lady's voice. My spotlight reflected off the glowing figure of a lady. She ran down the back of the cemetery and disappeared behind a headstone. I jumped from the car and ran to the headstone, but there was nobody there. Then I saw, behind the headstone, was a newly dug grave where we had buried Kathy, the night clerk. Now, there was a lot of controversy over her death. In fact, Unsolved Mysteries even came to town and did a show on the case. The sheriff lost the next election and drank himself to death over the next 2 years. And 6 years later, the new sheriff opened the case once more, focusing on Kathy's husband. The husband knew that the investigators were to be in Montana, where he had moved after the funeral. So he drove out to a pasture and put a bullet in his head. The case was closed as solved. No prosecution needed. That was many years ago. Us cops know a lot because our jobs take us where normal folk only talk of going.
Ooh.
Jerry. Intense, right?
That is intense. There's something familiar about that one that there used to be a show, maybe it's like Cold Case or something. It was on back when I actually watched TV, and it was like on late, and it was always about, like, I guess it was true crime. And when I lived in Denver, I used to watch it until I realized it really freaked me out. And I was like, I don't like this. Why am I watching this fucking show? It just came on and I keep watching it. But it was about,
it sucks you in.
It sucks you in, but it was about a similar thing where they found this car that was burnt out and a body inside.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, it was an insurance fraud scheme, and they had dug up a body at a local graveyard and put it in the car.
It was right by the cemetery.
Yes, and they threw the body in the car, burnt it, and got off with insurance money. Oh, I think that it was the wife, and then she started dating this guy. Like, the man who died in the car was Harry. Oh, and then Larry started coming around a few months later. Larry, he was just the dude in disguise. He just pretended he was a completely different person, and she married him. And so that was it too. That was how they figured out, because he was supposed to be a dude, but it was like a little old lady body when forensics actually advanced to the point that they could figure that out. And then, yeah, her new boyfriend, I think they were married and they had kids. And so then she remarried this guy named Larry or whatever.
Oh,
and it was really her husband who had died, and maybe he grew a beard, and maybe he dyed his hair or something, but it was like this bizarro case. I should look that up because I forgot
Harry,
it even exists.
Harry always has a fake mustache that's halfway falling.
Exactly. It was bizarre. And that's what that reminds me of. And now I will look that up at some point so I can fill you guys in.
Now I'm very curious if Jerry got his wires crossed with this story, Kathy's story. I mean, I don't want to discredit Kathy's death, though. I mean, she very well could have been, murdered by her husband. But it is convenient that the cemetery is right there and it's burned beyond recognition. I mean,
you're right.
The chances.
Or she staged her own death and framed her husband.
Oh, snap.
And that's why he's like, everyone thinks I'm guilty. They all think I'm guilty. And
then he has to go to Montana.
Yeah. He got it because she framed him good. And where is Kathy? I don't know. But I don't want to, that sounds like a sad story. I don't want to make anything up.
I did not go far enough to actually look in Unsolved Mysteries archives to find Kathy's story. But I thought, regardless of anything, Jerry was on patrol. He heard the woman's screams. He saw the shadowy figure, and it was at Kathy's grave. So something was there, living or not living.
I don't like that. I don't like fresh graves and screaming and running people.
How much would somebody have to pay you to spend the night patrolling a cemetery? Graveyard shift.
How much would someone have to pay me? Make me an offer right now.
Okay. Alissa. Mm-hmm. $24 an hour to patrol the cemetery at night.
That's pretty good money.
$3,000. $3,000
for one night
to patrol the cemetery. All right, fine. You make a hard bargain. $30,000 to patrol.
I would do that. Absolutely. Okay, sure. For sure. Sold. I would do that for a night. I mean, it's a ghost.
Awesome.
It's not going to be able to really hurt me. It'll just scare me.
Yeah, right? Like it'll just scream a little bit. It's fine.
Can I patrol it in a Tesla where the little people pop up and it has the little people finder things?
It's so freaky. And yes, you can.
Okay.
Because you can afford a low-end Tesla.
I'm going to take that for a used Tesla. Very used.
Might not be fully functional, but yes.
Maybe a Segway, but that wouldn't have that. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Teslas have like, I guess they can detect everything out in front of them or something. But basically, people go through graveyards and then they see stick figures. It can show you if people are around because it wants to detect people because it auto drives
so they don't
hit them. So people go through cemeteries and there's like they see people walking around, which is crazy because it's a cemetery. It's dead people. Anyway, you should Google that if you haven't already seen that. I think we've mentioned on the podcast before, but it's worth seeing. And if you have a Tesla, for the love of God, please go do it and tell us what happens. Pick us up. Please. If you live near Britt or I, pick us up and take us and drive us through a cemetery on a date.
Okay. All right. Fine. For $30,000, I'll go on a date with you.
I don't know anyone who owns it and pay us $30,000. We forgot asterisks.
Alissa, do you have anything?
I have one more story. I was going to talk about Mount St. Helens, but I realized my stories are boring, and I'm going to tell you a different story. But Mount St. Helens was freaky too. But people died. 56 people died, and I do wonder if that is a haunted area. Not exactly a cemetery, but people are buried
under
a lot of mud.
Lava.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. Fun fact, it wasn't lava.
Fact checking me left and right.
It was a lot of mud, and they have chunky lava or something. I don't know. I thought it was lava too. It's not. Just a lot of mud. Anyway, and then there are some freaky things like the last photos from like a camera, like I guess those people must not have been buried. I don't know. Anyway, I read a few plaques and
there was like one person left in the volcanic mud with their hand lifted and it had a camera in it and they were like, oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah. Well, there were
It
was like newscasters and shit. They like went out there and there's literally like the last photo from their camera and it's just like this spray and mud like coming towards them. And there was a big bulge that was kind of building for weeks and people are all like going and looking at the bulge and then and it freaking like blasted at, what was it? It was like 700 miles per hour or something. It just like, we went down there thinking, oh, this is going to be cool and beautiful. And it's just scorched earth, like a fucking volcano just scorched like everything off 1980. So what is that?
Yeah.
40 years ago. And a little brush has grown back and stuff, but it's just wide open, like just scorched earth, huge explosion. Everything died. People got buried. Very tragic. And I do wonder if it's haunted. Okay. So anyway, this isn't that. This is a graveyard ghost. And this is from Nira, And they say that this happened a few years back when I was young. I was riding in the back seat of my stepfather's car one day, and we passed a cemetery. While passing, my eyes stopped on one tombstone that had the name Anne in bold on it. I didn't recall the last name, but I remember reading one as well in my head. We passed the cemetery, and I thought nothing of it. Moving forward to nighttime, I went to bed as usual that day. I was asleep, and suddenly I had woken up. When I was little, I would sleep under my covers fully because I was scared of the dark. So after waking up, I took the covers off of my head. I turned around and saw this woman sitting backwards in the chair that was in the middle of my bedroom.
Backwards?
She had her arms crossed on top of the chair and was leaning forward, smiling at me. Oh, so the chair was backwards. And they were all like, cool ghost. You know, like that's how that was.
Cool pose.
Cool ghost. Like you seem cool and like doing the whole class. Hey, teach.
Yeah, like the dare officer who's like, "Hey, I'm hip to the things, kid. Let me tell you what's up."
Yes, exactly. She had the green light to her and her hair was a mess. She was also wearing a dress, but it looked like it had been worn out and was very raggedy. I couldn't move when I saw her. I was frozen because of the shock, but once I snapped out of it, I just put the covers over my head again. After a few minutes, I gathered up the courage to look out of my covers again, but she was gone. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night.
We've talked about this, about when you leave cemeteries, there's a ritual to it. Did we talk about this with Psychic Alex?
Yeah, and I went to a cemetery the other day and I totally forgot to do whatever we were supposed to do.
And they have this spigots, like you wash your hands and you're supposed to be like, don't follow me home.
There's a whole spigot thing. And it was dry and Odin was pumping it and nothing came out. And he was like, Mom, what's this spigot for? And I said, I don't know, maybe to water the flowers and water the garden and grass. And meanwhile, everything is like yellow parched.
Gotta wash those hands. Gotta wash the hands.
I think we did wash our hands.
Damn.
There was also a monkey puzzle tree or something there too. That was apparently, it's like a kind of rare endangered tree and they are very popular in graveyards. But no, the spigot. Didn't do it. We actually took acorns from this tree.
Oh, that's almost as bad as taking a penny.
Not an acorn. Sorry. That would be as bad as taking a penny. This was just a pine cone.
Better.
We found it on the ground. I don't know. I don't know if it's not quite as bad as taking a penny. Dude, you gotta go back to London and return that shilling. I'm surprised you guys didn't freaking crash that rickshaw.
I went to India after that.
What? Like, I know, exactly.
I probably threw that pence at something.
Probably
I don't
something
know.
Real bad happened. But you're like, this is my lucky shilling stolen from a grave in London. Like,
I was so dumb.
Oh my God.
Oh man. Ooh, that's a freaky story. I like that one.
Hey Britt, do you have one last story?
I do, Alissa.
Okay.
I have one last story.
Tell me.
This is from Casey. This happened over 25 years ago. I went to take my boyfriend home and we decided to go fool around on the way. I pulled down this very old cemetery road that goes back into the woods.
Casey gets it.
I know. Oh, yeah. She knows. Hot dates. Now, this path that we're taking is one way in and one way out. We go down to the end where you have to turn around because of the deep ditch that goes all the way around the back of the cemetery. At this point, I'm facing the road so that we can see if anyone comes down it. It's summertime and the sun was setting. We have the windows down, and of course, I leave the car running. I told him, if you see anything, let me know. And he agreed. About 5 minutes go by, and then he asked me, what if someone comes? And I said, well, let me know. So I take it at this point that she doesn't go into specifics, but she's not able to see anybody coming
in her,
down the road. So the boyfriend has to be the lookout to see if anybody's coming.
Okay.
Then he said, Casey, look beside you. And before I even looked, this very sharp pain hit me in my gut so hard. I turned and looked beside me, and this candy apple red truck with large tires and dual muffler was parked right beside my car. The driver was a man, and the passenger was a woman with really light blonde hair. They were just looking down at me in the creepiest way. Their heads were turned at an angle and they looked dislocated. They were very pale white and they looked at us hard. Hell, I didn't even think about nothing but hitting the gas pedal and getting out of there. As we got to the highway, I parked across the street at the campground that my family goes to that's facing the cemetery road to see when they came out. I asked my boyfriend, how could they have gotten their truck down there and parked beside us and be facing the same way we were? There was no way to get past my car, and we were parked in the spot that was the only way to get turned around, and it's very narrow. Also, how could we not hear the truck because we had the windows down the whole time? So we waited about 10 minutes and still no one came out. I told him, we're going back down there just to see if they're still there. So we drove down the narrow road, got to the spot, and no one was there. We watched the driveway and they never came out. My heart started beating so fast. Still to this day, I can see the woman and man's face looking at me. I get goosebumps every time I tell anyone what happened to us.
Ooh, what do you think happened? Someone wrecked their car and their badass Jeep on that cemetery road?
Possible haunted truck that did not want any hanky-panky happening. Maybe they were a ghostly couple buried in the cemetery and they noticed the hanky-panky happening and like, let's appear in a huge red truck and, make them stop.
I know what it is.
Huh? Okay.
Ghost Patrol.
Ghost Patrol. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Ghost Patrol.
Ghost Patrol. It sounds freaky. Also, sounds like possibly it was just some people who are like, why the fuck are you two parked at a cemetery making out, you weirdos? I would have a weird face too if I was like, really?
Only just came to me now as I have read this story twice. They talked about a big ditch running around the whole cemetery. She did. But they also mentioned that this truck is huge. And if your head's buried in a place that you can't hear very well, and maybe the other person is really into something, then not focusing on the sounds around, perhaps this truck just hit the ditch and was able to pop up there.
Yeah. Cemeteries are one of the best places for four-wheeling. Really.
Okay, I didn't think about obstacles. That part. The really obvious obstacles. Okay, cross that theory out. Dope.
Just this monster truck over the mausoleums.
Grave digger.
Exactly. That's how he
literally
got his name. That's really funny. Ooh, but that is freaky. I don't like anything even slightly odd at a cemetery. It just feels like it's heightened to the next level. I bringing it full circle. I think I do know who is haunting the Black Diamond Cemetery.
Ooh.
Speaking of Ghost Patrol, there is a family called Boos, Boos, in that cemetery.
No.
I swear to God,
No.
I saw it and I was like, I think we found our ghosts. It literally says Boos.
Get
It's a whole family of
out.
Boos, Boos, in the cemetery. I have a picture.
That is so unfortunate.
It's perfect.
They're destined
to haunt.
That's
Why
their
is this even a
life's
question?
work.
Be like, y'all.
Duh.
Think I
Problem
found them.
solved.
That's what we do. We solve these problems. I will post a picture of that because I took a picture. Well, Britt, I think we really unearthed some good stories this week. Really dug up some great
for sure
stories. A couple plot
there were
twists.
plot twists.
There it is.
Okay, big news before we sign off real quick, Alissa.
Okay.
On October 1st will be our 100th episode. We're doing a live episode. Get ready. And we are going to do it in Seattle somewhere in a haunted hotel.
We're going to live stream it. We aren't like necessarily going to have like a crowd in our hotel. Like we're making it sound like we booked a room for our listeners.
I mean, we don't know.
No, like
crowded with ghosts, crowded with people
like we're
that
not
we
going to
find
be
on
at
the
the Paramount. Like we're not like we're doing.
Oh,
Britt and I are getting a hotel room at a haunted hotel in Seattle, and we are going to be doing a live broadcast, a live stream episode for our 100th episode / second anniversary party, and a kickoff of the spooky season, October 1st.
I'm so excited. I am jazzed. It's going to be real messy, as you know us, and really fun. And I'm very looking forward to it.
I'm very excited.
And if you want us to share a spooky story on that episode, you can write it in to our email.
That is SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You can also call and leave us a message on our SkeleTales hotline, and Britt has that number.
302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We have a merch shop with a brand new haunted doll that has red eyes. For real. Go check that out at SkeleTalesPodcast.etsy.com. Share with your friends. Like our social medias. Post things, message us.
Do all the things.
What else?
Heck yeah.
All the things.
I did have one thing that I just wrote down, Britt.
Yeah.
Haunt you later.
Haunt y'all later.
Good night.
Good night.